Hello everyone, I'm Miss Henneman, and I am here today to share with you our part 2 of our analysis about the last question that Jesus asked Judas Iscariot in the moment of his betrayal. Friend, why did you come from? It was the question. And as we saw earlier, the last experience of Judas involves one of the noblest words mentioned in the whole Bible, the word friend. And it is mentioned many times by many people, but especially by Jesus, our very best friend. So, as in the introduction in part 1, our topic will remain as I value. And as a base test, we'll continue with Matthew 26:50. In the Greek, the original language of the New Testament, which is the Greek koine, we read this verse as you see here. Rodé Iesus eipen auto, ἑταῖρε, πάρει, tot presiotontes balontais, heiras epiton e sunkai ecretesan auton. So, as I said before, it is a very beautiful and deep text, but to be more familiar, we'll read it in English. And Jesus said to him, "Do what you came for, friend?" Then the man stepped forward and seized Jesus and arrested him. So, as we saw from our introduction, all our comments, analyses, and definitions will be based on the simple question we see here in the very middle of the first sentence in Greek. ἑταῖρε, πάρει. It was the question Jesus asked Judas moments before his crucifixion. And then I bring the same question here now as a central part of the test. ἑταῖρε, πάρει. In English, friend, what are you coming for? Or why are you coming? Or why did you come? Depending of the version you use, the translation in English comes different, but is all the same question. So before to go to the next slide, I just wanted to make a very important information here, and it is a grammar information or grammatical information, because I love to work with grammar, and I think this aspect of the language teaches us how to understand the word and the root of the word, and besides this, teaches us how to use correctly and how to apply the word according to the grammar rules. So in this case, my observation is, in this sentence, you don't see at the end of this question, the question mark. If you know some about the Greek grammar, you know the question mark in Greek is a semicolon in English. So semicolon from English is a question mark in Greek. And here you don't see the symbol. We just have a period. Why? Because in this sentence, which is a question, we have this very simple word here, which is just one letter, and we read it as a ho. Ho, in this case, is a relative pronoun, but in this context, it appears as an interrogative pronoun. And it takes a place of why or for what. Why something is happening. And then because the simple ho, which is an interrogative pronoun in this context, we have here a complete question. So the word previous before ho is f, which is a preposition, and it points to the purpose or goal or reason why something is happening. And next, after ho, we have πάρει, which is the verb. It points to what you came, or the simple to come or to be present. And here in the first, we have our very main word from the whole text, which is ἑταῖρε, is the word Jesus used to talk with Judas Iscariot and means best friend or special friend. So just to explain you, a question mark is not a real, but it is a question because the interrogative pronoun who. So, as I showed you from the very beginning, our topic is divided in three parts. The first part we saw last week, and then we saw together some analytical questions. Between these, we saw the definition of a philos as a common friend and heder as a special friend. Together, we saw the whole qualities or attributes referring to each one of them and which is the difference between them and why Jesus called Judas Iscariot as a heder, which is a special friend and not a philos. So I explained as much as I could from heder. If you didn't check, I would like you to come back to part 1 to be familiar with this part of our discussion. Also, I answered this important question, which is why did Jesus call Judas Iscariot as a special friend while he was not even a common friend? I answered this question in part 1, so again, I would like you to come back and watch part 1. And at the end, in this context, what does this word heder, this word mean? In particular, referring to Judas Iscariot, who was absolutely not a friend, but Jesus called him as a special friend. Why and how to understand this part of this reference? Please come back to part 1 to be able to understand the part 2, because this is the sequence, right? Because of the sequence. Today, in our part 2, we'll start studying some key questions. And we'll start with who was Judas Iscariot. We'll try to know him as a man beside as a disciple. In this point, you talk and you learn about his profession, his character. In this part of the character, we'll see about his habit, in particular his bad habit, to become what he was at the end. His past, even if the Bible does not talk too much about his past, we just will study him as a person, as a man, from who was Judas, his profession, and some habits he had through his character, through these 3 years when he was with Jesus. We'll just make a kind of a simple analysis about his behavior. He also talk about his plan. This plan here refers to the plan he made to arrest Jesus or against Jesus. And during the time you talk about the plan, we'll talk, for example, about the authorities with who he negotiated the price of Jesus. Who were these authorities with Judas Iscariot talked and negotiated about Jesus? Also talk about the guards or the soldiers. How did Judas inform them who they should arrest? Also talk about the place where everything of this event happened, where he would make all this happen against Jesus. He also talked about the sign, which was the kiss, the betrayal through a kiss that Judas gave in Jesus. Had it any symbolism? We'll see together today. So also we'll talk about the silver coins, which was the price these authorities paid Judas for betrayal Jesus. And at the end, did Jesus know all about this situation? If he knew, why did he allow all of this? We also all this part today. And next week, in our last part, we will study together some final moments of Judas and what was Judas' response to Jesus. Gave him any response to Jesus when Jesus asked the friend, why did you come? We'll see together next week. What did he think? What did he feel? And why that decision? Why? Which was the situation to lead Judas to make this kind of sad decision he did against Jesus? We also talk about his final consequence, which was also his fatal consequence. And what does this example teaches us? That is something we can learn together from Judas' example. We'll see next week. So we started today with some key questions. As I say, our first part, who was Judas Iscariot? We started to learn to know him by his name. I believe sometimes our name talks some about who we are. We have so many examples in the Bible, in particular in the Old Testament, when the people were known more than by their names than by something else. So we'll see his name came from Greek Judas, which means praise. Some theories say this praise was relating just to Judas, like, for example, Judas, the praised one. So this praise related to him only. Or the theory says this praise was relating to God, like, for example, Judas, the one who praises God. But I think this way, no matter if this praise was relating to Judas or to God, the thing is his name means praise. It was something good from the very beginning, right? Something important for me. He was one of the first to join Christ and become his disciple. In Acts and other references, we see Judas was Jesus' disciple. It was a very important experience. He walked with the Master for around 3 years. It is a good time. And he saw personally his ministry, Jesus' ministry. He was present in many of his teachings. He saw his miracles. Interesting, beside all these blessings, he also had the privilege to be sent to preach the gospel. The same privilege, the same call all disciples had from Jesus, Judas had, to go forward and to preach the word. It is interesting, beside all these privileges and blessings, he decided to continue to be as he was from the beginning. He decided not to change. It is the sad part of his experience. Originally, he was from the tribe of Judah, and he was born in Ķiriot, region of Judea. So this place is a very important place in this context because we'll see some aspects of Judas' identification from this place, Ķiriot. So he also was known as Iscariot, which is the name as we know him, or man of Ķiriot. So in this case, I think it is because of the place where he was born, so he was the man of Ķiriot, or also Iscariot for another reason. Probably Iscariot comes from the Latin Sicarius in Latin, which means killer. But we know the Bible does not talk about Judas as a killer, right? He is known as a traitor. It is the way as we know him the most. And now, for the other side, Sicarius in Latin is part of his name. One option or one theory or possibility is he came from a radical, a kind of a group of Jews which was I say violent, a kind of a terrorist, and because the origin where he came from Sicarios, which was the Jews, they identified as a violent people, to not say the other word. He was identified as a killer because it is origin, because of the origin of his life. But also, the other theory says maybe Iscariot was just the name of his family, or a kind of last name. So if it was because of the group of Jews, or because his last name in Homero, he is known as Iscariotes. Judas is the name that appears most frequently in the Gospels after Simon Peter. So Simon Peter comes first, is very, very well frequent during the Gospels, but Judas comes in second place. Why? Because not just because Judas Iscariot, but because the name have so many other people who use it, the same name, using even some more important people, or some people who were taking a most high or important positions. So not just because of Judas. But anyway, this is the name which comes frequently after Simon Peter. He was the one disciple who was not from Galilee. From 12 disciples, apparently Judas was the only who was not from Galilee. He was from another place. So, of Jewish ethnicity, like Jesus. He was not from Galilee. He was from the same ethnicity of Jesus. He was a Jew. Some information about his name. The second thing you see here was his profession. He had a good knowledge in economy and administration. And when I say he had a good knowledge, I'm not talking just about the academic formation. I don't know, we don't know if he studied the economy, but the thing is, when we use this expression, had knowledge, we also refer to ability, we also refer to he had some experiences, and also he had some professionalization. I mean, he was a kind of a professional in economy, in administration, which is a good thing. And also he had a good ability to work with numbers. And one proof of this is he quickly calculated the value of the perfume that Mary poured in Jesus' feet. We saw this in John 12. So it is interesting information. It was a kind of a proof because very quickly he calculated the value of the perfume. Mary was worshiping God, and she used a very expensive, pure balm that he poured in Jesus' feet. And though it is high value, Judas Iscariot complained against her. He say, why we don't sell this perfume for 300 denarius and give it to the poor people. And the Bible says, explain why in the same verse. The thing is, the first observation, he quickly calculated the value of the perfume. And honestly, I don't think the perfume had a kind of a tag with the price to show how much this perfume was the value of the perfume. I don't think it was there. So how he did this? How Judas calculated the price? Just because he was good in numbers. This is my simple answer. At that time, the time of Jesus, a treasurer, it was a kind of a profession, was a type of a religious professional who managed the assets of a diocese, church, and convent. So I repeat, a treasurer was a type of a religious professional who managed the assets of the diocese, church, and convent. It was a kind of a professional. And in this case, he was a treasure of Jesus' ministry team. So Judas had a very important position. Probably he had the confidence about the people around. It was not something simple. Other people didn't have the same privilege he had. He was responsible for the economy of the ministry. As a treasurer, he was very dishonest. And then he will start his bad part of his testimony. He was dishonest. He appropriated of the money or provision or offering which was intended or separated for the poor people. In other words, he robbed. He took to him the money which was not his, so he was literally very dishonest. But beside all these things, we see Jesus knew Judas, he knew his bad character, bad habit, but even like this, he wanted to use his abilities, as I say here, is an example that proves God uses our skills and knowledge, our experiences, our strategies, all we know, all we learn, all we are. He wants to use it for his glory. So he had a very good knowledge, he had a very good ability, but his character, his bad character, his negative side of his life was the reason of his personal destruction. Also, in key question, his character, how it was. He was a thief, as we see here in John 12. He was selfish, he was dishonest, he was like this from the very beginning. He didn't care anything if the people were seeing, if his testimony was being strange or different of the other. He just was this way, very dishonest from the very beginning. Because he appropriated the donation or money or help or provision or offering, just separated for the poor people. He took for himself. He protested Mary, saying, why was not this perfume sold for 300 pieces of silver? See, he knew very well how to calculate. And as I say, I don't think the perfume had a tag with the price, but he knew already because he was really good in economy, administration, in numbers, in money. So then he complained, say this, and give it to the poor people. But he said that not because he cared about the poor, but because he was a thief. We know this. We can read about this information in John 12. Again, he criticized Mary when she used this expensive perfume to anoint Jesus, but he was not concerned with his false Christian appearance. He was not absolutely no worry with his disguised behavior and trained words with phraseology adapted to hide his shame and deceive others. In other words, he was so ready to point his finger against Mary, spending a very expensive perfume, he anointed, he worshiped Jesus, but he was not worried with himself, his bad testimony, or his bad habits. He was nothing more than a religious man who pretended to be a Christian. He is sad to say, but this is something very common in our present time. So many people in churches, and not just simple members, but leaders, are just religious. Inside of them, they are dead. They are empty. They don't know anything about where they are going in their eternities. It is a huge problem. He was a hypocrite. We know this because he lived by appearance. He was greedy in lover of money to the point that he sold Jesus for 30 silver coins. So if you see, we follow a kind of sequence. From the beginning, he robbed probably simple or little amounts from the packet they had to give to the poor. After he complained with Mary when Mary was in a very important moment worshiping Jesus. At the end, he sold Jesus, all because of the money. From the beginning to the end, he was literally a lover of money. And the Bible says the lover of money as the root of everything bad in our lives, right? So this whole negative story shows us that when a bad habit is not interrupted, is not cut off, is not stopped in our lives from the beginning, and it repeat in our lives, at the end it becomes part of our character. In other words, we are what we do. In this case, he was a treasure, but anyway, because all his bad actions, and bad habits, all his sins, he became what he did. Therefore, it is important to detect what is wrong in our lives now while we have time, and ask God for his help. And besides this, work hard in ourselves to help us to change and change for better while we can, while we have time, while Jesus didn't come back yet. However, Judas apparently decided not to change. It was his decision. So now you go to the plan. As I said, the first part is the authority. His plan involved the authorities. Who were these authorities? He negotiated with the Sanhedrin. Sanhedrin was what? A type of Supreme Court with the maximum security or authority against the biggest criminal of the time. When I use the word criminal, I remember this woman, I think his name is Barabbas, and Jesus was basically negotiated publicly, put in the same level of the highest criminal or delinquent of the time. When Judas went to talk to this Sanhedrin or Supreme Court, he was placing Judas, I will say between quotation marks, right? Because at the end, Jesus never was corrupted with anything, but in Judas' imagination, he dropped Jesus to the same level, sorry for my throat, with the criminals. He negotiated with this authority a specific amount of money, because it was all he had in his mind, in his feeling, his desire, always was a love for money. So then he went to this authority, which is a kind of Supreme Court, maximum authority against the criminal, to negotiate against Jesus. Also, the Sanhedrin is a great judicial authority at the time, of that time, composed of priests, high priests, elders, and scribes. These scribes were the ones who wrote the laws. For this, they also were part of this Supreme Court or Sanhedrin. The Sanhedrin had the powers of life and death. I mean, they decided who will live and who will die. And for this reason, Judas went directly to them because it was a really huge decision. And once this authority take or make the decision, no one were able to change anything anymore. From whom Judas immediately received are escort of soldiers. In this point, escort is also defined as a troop or guard, a battalion or armed unit of soldiers. And this escort was a kind of amount of soldiers. It was between 500 and 1,000 men, armed men, or armed soldiers. I don't believe the Judas took, for example, 500 of them, the soldiers, armed soldiers, to go to arrest Jesus. I don't think, because this huge amount of soldiers demanded to talk with other authorities, higher even from the common group around the situation. And also this big amount of people, like 500 soldiers, could create a huge noise in the city and scare the whole population. So I really don't believe Judas walked with 500 armed soldiers, but I believe he went with 100, 150 maybe, all armed, because the population that time considered Jesus someone dangerous because of his power, because of his big miracles, and because of his popularity. The people, the authority thought, wow, this man is becoming so popular, our position is now in jeopardy. We need to stop him because he is so powerful. We need more and more soldiers. So I believe Judas walked maybe with around 100, 150 armed soldiers to arrest Jesus. It was the troop he had from there. So he negotiated over the price of Jesus' life with this Supreme Court, which was the Sanhedrin. And also, we see here in this reference in Matthew 26:15, when Judas took the first step and asked, "What do you want to give me? And I will give him to you," referring to Jesus. And they pay him 30 silver coins. So he was negotiating. And from here, I don't see any reference when Judas came back to complain about the price. Apparently, it was a good price, and he was very happy for receiving 30 silver coins for Jesus' life. So it was a good price. We will see later. So, but after all this part of the plan, I think, here we see that Judas took time to plan, to organize specifically, and to define how he would take each step and finally execute or to make it successfully. Such as it shows just how powerful was the corruption in his life, in his heart. He was so obsessed for his own sin, for his love of money. So all this plan, almost perfect, make me think he took time to make almost a perfect plan against Jesus. Also about the plan, we talked about the guards. As we saw, some have to negotiate with the Sanhedrin. Judas immediately received a escort of soldiers. And as I already mentioned, this escort of soldiers, which can also be called a fleet of a troop or guard or armed unit of soldiers, comprised a number that ranged between 500 and 1,000 men, depending of the case. So, after talk with this authority, he received this escort. And this escort was formed of soldiers and other servants of the Sanhedrin, the temple guards, captain of the temple guard, members of the Sanhedrin, and some Roman soldiers, who were part of the garrison that was in the Tower of Antonia, built northwest of the temple. So in this case, I prefer to believe that the number of the official who arrested Jesus was, as I say, between 100 and 150. Also because Jesus was represented to the authorities, kind of a threat to local authorities, they were thinking Jesus could take their places because of his popularity. So it is possible. One observation, the Tower of Antonio was a very special place. It had several proposals, several events or different things happening there in this building. For example, it was a King Herod's palace, one useful action. It was his palace. Also, it was a military place. For this, some of the soldiers were here in the same Tower of Antonia. It also was a platform for public speeches. In one other side, the thing is, this building was very famous. It was a place for soldiers. And Judas took this trophy from there. They didn't know who Jesus was or where he was exactly. And then Judas had to lead them to the agreed place, the garden of the Gethsemane. So then, this guard didn't know Jesus. Jesus was almost in his ministerial and spiritual life, and the guards were in the other side of politics, right? Or justice. They were in two different worlds. They didn't know Jesus. So then Judas had to go in front of them, and they were following Judas until the garden of the Gethsemane to arrest Jesus. So in this case, the guards depended of Judas to get where Jesus was. Also in the play, we will go now to the place was, we know already, the garden of the Gethsemane. Judas chose the appropriate place according his intention. He chose the appropriate place to betray the master without others suspecting. Why I put here this? Without suspecting or suspicion. Because the garden of the Gethsemane was a place of prayer or for rest. Who will visit a place for prayer? No one. So for this reason, I believe Judas thought no one will suspect it, no one will think something like this arrest will happen in this very special place of prayer. So then I will take this place. Why? Because Judas knew when Jesus had the habit to go with the disciples to this place, this garden of Gethsemane. Judas knew his routine. Judas knew when Jesus was not preaching or working the ministry. He was in places like the Gethsemane, resting or praying with the disciple. He calculated, he knew, in that time, in that exactly day, he will be there. And then, without suspicion, he thought, he bring the guards there. Because it was a place of rest, as I say, and you would probably be praying and not realize this. Or say, this point here, my intention is to mention this way. Judas took the exact place when he knew Jesus will be with the disciple, pray or rest. And then, because it was a place for rest or praying, he thought Jesus will not notice, he will not see, he will not think, he will not realize, because probably he will be praying or maybe he will be resting. He will not see even when we come to arrest him. It was his poor imagination. And we know it is not possible, right? Because God knows everything even before the time. Jesus knows everything even before the time. For him, for Judas, This was the best time to execute his plan, because it was the time, now the time beside the place where or when Jesus was praying, he was completely disconnected of what was happening around him. It was his imagination. Judas was responsible for this great event to arrest Jesus, to sell an innocent person and make money from it. Judas was brought to the priest. After all the situation, Jesus was brought to the priest and then handed over to the Roman governor Pontius Pilate and Herod. Right? These are the way, the authority when Jesus came at the end. But for Judas, the appropriate place to betray Jesus, the Master, without any suspicion was the Gethsemane, on the mountain of the Olives, because it was a place rarely visited at night. There, Jesus used it to go with the disciples to rest and to pray. So then, from this point, I ask, after Judas have the idea to bring the guards there where Jesus was in the night, who would visit a place of prayer at the night? Because all the situation happened in the night. Who will visit this place of prayer at the night? Probably no one. Then it was the perfect place and perfect time for Judas Iscariot to make his horrible plan. So also in the plan, we'll talk about the sign. The sign was a kiss, right? We know already he kissed Jesus. The second, the escort would not know who Jesus was. Now, why? My question in the introduction was, why the sign was a kiss? Because even I say we have other ways to make a sign. You can make it like with your head or our eyes, to the right or to the left, or use the finger or point there. But Judas didn't do any of the sign. He preferred the kiss. Why? So my first possibility, my first reason is this. The escort of the guards didn't know who Jesus was. Who was Jesus? He didn't know. They didn't know. And because it was dark, it was in the night, it was even difficult to identify Jesus. And what happened? Judas planned to make something visible. He walked maybe 2 or 3 steps until Jesus, invisible in front of everybody, he kissed him. It was much better than to make a sign with his eyes or finger or head or something. It was much more visible. He walked there, he made a visible movement, a visible steps, and everybody saw, because he previously says, the one who I kiss, this is the man. So it was for me the first reason. He made a very visible sign to indicate who was Jesus. Second, since it was night, it was dark, right? It would be even more difficult to distinguish him from his disciple. Why? Here, because it was dark, it was night, but also because the people, the disciples were very similar with Jesus. They were all very similar. This is my idea. I just imagine that because everyone except Judas everyone was from the same geographic region. They were all from Galilee. And sometimes when you come all from the same place, depending of the region where you come, we have some similar aspects. Then I think they were all, for example, of the same color. I believe this. I think they had a kind of long hair, maybe curly hair, all of them. I think all of them had the same height, all of them were thin, because they fasted. Sometimes they were in fasting. Also, they walked a lot. So I think they had so many things similar. And they looked very similar to each other too. And this made it difficult for the guards to identify Jesus. Then Judas had the brilliant idea of making a physical demonstration with a kiss to identify Jesus. I really think the appearance was very similar in the night, even more difficult. They did not expect the Savior to appear spontaneously. So in this case, it was common when the prisoner were going to the prison, usually they fought. They started to fight with everybody around, even with the guards, to escape. Some of them escaped, some ran away, some disappeared, some fought strongly for their lives. It was normal for them. So no one expected Jesus step forward and say, I am the person you are looking for. And when Jesus did, the people around got the impact of his presence, the power of his presence. And boom, everybody received like a shock of his power. But the thing is, Jesus made exactly what Judas and everybody else thought he was not able to do. He stepped forward and said, I am the person you are looking for. So they did not expect them, because they did not expect Judas thought, I will identify him in front of everybody, because in case he tried to escape, everybody knows already who he is, right? Who is the person I am talking about. So he tried to do something before the event ends, prevent Jesus was planning to escape. Also, among Jews, the kissing was a common form of greeting. It was very common, even as yet today. They kiss each other like to say hello, how are you, something like this is very common. So, in this point, also, Judas was very smart. He didn't use something different or strange in front of other people. He used one very common and normal habit, which is kiss each other. If he decided to do something different, maybe the people around could be surprised, but because it was a normal expression of friendship, love, and appreciation, no one will not say anything different. So he used the same to not call the attention of no one around. He was smart in choice for the kind of sign he was using. So naturally, the kiss represents a gesture of friendship, but Judas used it as a trick, so to not surprise no one around. He was very smart, in my opinion, doing this. Judas transformed an special sign of friendship and tenderness into a symbol of betrayal. It was the way as he did, in the consequence we have even today, right? It was his word when he was planning which sign to use. Whoever I kiss, arrest him. So it was his sign. His sign. He decided, I will do this, and the one I kiss, take him, arrest him. So here, Judas created a false appearance by using the kiss, which is an expression of love, to do something very shameful. That was his ability to deceive. He had this very side of him, and apparently he was okay with this situation. Now the silver coins talks about the price, and we see here how he negotiated. In Matthew 26:15, what are you willing to give me if I deliver him over to you? he was talking about how much you pay me for Jesus' life. And they pay him 30 pieces of silver. So from this point, we don't see, as I say, no reference when Judas appeared complain for the little price. It was wonderful because apparently it was a good price for his betrayal. Now some information just to help us think a little about this price. The Jewish laws and Roman regulation dictate that the temple in Jerusalem could exclusively store this kind of the drums and tetradrams from the Tyrian, the title, as payment for annual tribute. This is just information. The Sanhedrin would have paid Judas the coins that were part of the temple treasury. I mean, the people paid the taxes and then the temple kept it there, and from this money they pay Judas. Now we have some other different interpretations regarding to the type of currency at the time. We have other theories. And by the way, before we go forward, we will talk about something which happened in the past. We needed to consider theories, possibilities, just calculations. At the end, nothing is very sure. It's that just theories to help us to think and get a good conclusion. So in this case, we have here some different theories or interpretations. For example, they could even have been this currency, which is Tyrian, the Tyrian tetradrams are commonly called shekels. Sorry for my throat. 14 grams and 94 percentage. This measurement in weight he was as mentioned because according the amount of silver was the price correspondent for each coin. Also, or they may have been the ones from Antioch, with the face of Caesar Augustus, with 15 grams and 75 percentage of silver. Another theory is that these silver coins were equivalent to Roman denarii. So in this case, I prefer to be with this theory here. I'm very well open to accept this theory. The coin that Judas received was this kind of here, in my opinion, was the Roman denarii, because that time the Judea was under the political power of the Roman Empire. Even Matthew knew this because he was a tax collector. So a Roman soldier, for example, received around 225 denarii a year. If you compare, for example, a military soldier in our present time earns about $35,000 a year. This is just a calculation. According to this interpretation, Judas would have received a little more than $3,000 into this money. Again, this is just a theory. It's a calculation. It's a possibility. We are trying very hard to come closer, the closest as possible, to imagine how much was the amount Judas received in comparison with our money, our value today. So one possibility is he probably got a little more than $3,000 in comparison with our value today. If it is true, it was a good amount of money. But another theory pointed here, Exodus 21, the value of 30 pieces of silver, which was the price that Judas received for Jesus' life, was equivalent to a price of a slave. I mean, if in that time a slave was sold to someone else, the price had to be 30 pieces of silver or 30 coins of silver. The same price Judas received for Jesus. In this point, because this definition, basically Jesus is reduced, again between quotation marks, right, to the level of a slave. Who is the slave? The slave is someone who does not have anything. Jesus didn't have anything. Even his life was not his anymore, because at the end he gave his life for us, right? So in this case, 30 pieces of silver was the price of a slave, which was the same Judas received for Jesus' life. It is estimated that the average price of a slave at that time would be equivalent to 90 current dollars. So in this case, therefore, Judas would have received a value of $90 in today's value. This is just a comparison, again, just a calculation. So the pieces of silver was the salary with Zechariah received. We have here the reference. He was considered a good salary. In other version or the comment say a excellent salary. The thing is, any numerical calculation of these currencies, in the whole time of Jesus is not effective, because at that time there were several times of currencies. For example, from Antioch, for Tyre, and from Roma. And each one with a different price, weight, and value, because the amount of silver in each one. So therefore, all we have here are just an approximate theories about the equivalence of how much Judas received for bringing Jesus to be arrested. Again, it is just a theory, it's just a calculation, it's just possibilities. Now we have here some types of currencies. For example, we have here the tetradrachms from Antioch. This is the image. Also, we have the Tyrian tetradrachms from shekels, which is the image we have here. And also we have the Roman denarius, which is my preference. It has its origin in this and its numerical value. So again, the denarius had a different amount, different percentage of silver in each coin. According to the percentage was the value of each one. But this is very hard to calculate once it is from many long past ago. It's difficult to calculate according aos value today, but it is just a possibility. It has origin in numerical value. The next here, Roman silver coins, which weighed about 3.85 grams with a current value of 75 cents of dollars. So this theory says 3.85 grams correspond to 74 cents of dollar. Other theories say it's not 74, it's just 49. So because of this difference of numbers, it's almost impossible to calculate the exact price Judas received, but according we saw right now before, it could be one amount corresponding to $3,000 or just $90 according another theory. So at the end, it was a salary for 12 hours of someone who worked for work day. This amount was paid with the Roman denarius. So the Roman denarius is here. This is the image. It was much more popular. And for this brings more possibility of the price that Judas received for Jesus' life. The possibility is much bigger there. So the question here was this: didn't Jesus know all this? If he knew, why did he allow it? So we have some discussion from the first part of this discussion. Why did Jesus allow it? Why he allowed it happened? This bad example from Judas Iscariot. First, to show him the high value that Jesus gave him. I think Judas was really blind, very, very blind. He's so confused that he even forgot how much he was loved by Jesus. But Jesus was there to remind him how much him loved him, yet how much Jesus loved Judas, no matter what he was doing or he was being that time. So also, why Jesus allowed this? So that Judas would recognize his own value. His blindness was so great that the point he lost even the notion of his own value as a person. And above of all, he lost the value, the idea, the notion of the value of his own eternity. Remember now, going away, you're going to the eternity without God, separated of Jesus, is not a good idea. But Jesus was there again to remind Judas about his high value. And there we see why Jesus allowed this, to show him that Jesus did not reject him despite his betrayal. Despite what he was doing or what he was being that time, Jesus did not reject him, did not hate him, did not ignore him. This shows for each one of us how much God loves us, with equal measurement between others, without indifference, without discrimination, no matter who we are. And also, these 3 points show me the value that Jesus gave to Judas was really very different. The one Judas was giving to Jesus. For Judas, Jesus' value was just 30 coins of silver. But for Jesus, his value, Judas' values, was relating to the best word he had in his vocabulary, which was ἑταῖρε, or friend. So the sweetest, noble, and most loving expression that can be given to the traitor, it was the word හෙταῖρε, or best friend, or special friend, as we already know. So the difference of value is very clear. And he gives us the opportunity, as he gave it to Judas, to reflect on the evil we are doing yet. He also gives us the opportunity to recognize and to return to him, especially since in many cases it is our very last chance. And finally, he permitted this, he allowed this just to help Judas to see that the value he placed on Jesus was amazing, 30 pieces of silver, as I say, and was not the same value that Jesus placed on him, which was the most loved expression we see here in the word හෙταῖρε, or friend. And also remember in 2 Timothy 2:13, the Bible says, but if we are unfaithful, him, God remains faithful because he cannot deny himself. It was his action in Judas' favor. Now, let us continue to think that if Jesus asked us, හෙταῖρε, πάρει, friend, what are you coming for? What will you say? If he asks why you are here, friend, why are you here? Why are you coming for? Why are you hang out with me? What would we respond to him? What we will say? Would we tell the truth? Or will we remain silent? Or would we also get confused as happened with Judas? Let us remember that Judas Iscariot has already passed away, but there in the world are still many other Judas in this same present time. And these ones are the ones who are lying, who are slandering, who are betraying, who are causing division between people, who are make worse things like even deeply loving what they do the wrong. I mean, loving their sins. They are a kind of Judas we can identify today in our present time, in our church, in our ministry, and we need to be very careful to not become one like this. It is not God's desire for us to follow this type of examples. So let us careful. So let us be careful and watch our steps, our words, our decisions, our reactions, our character, our plans, our imaginations, our feelings, especially those called final steps or final decisions that will mark our lives in eternity forever, as happened with Judas Iscariot. May we all learn from these terrible mistakes with Judas Iscariot. My final question here is, are we friends of God already? And if we are, we kind of friends of God we are. We kind of friends we already are. And remember, in James 2:23, the Bible says, and about this important man, right? And Abraham believed in God, and it was counted to him as righteousness, and he was called friend of God. This is a very important description. But in Genesis 18, we see something even much more important. When we read this, then the Lord said to himself, so it was God's declaration, can I hide anything from my friend Abraham? Or Abraham? Can I hide something from him, from my friend? Can I do this? So the level of friendship between God and Abraham was so powerful, so deep, so high, so true, so perfect, that to the point God says, I cannot hide anything from my friend Abraham. Which kind, which type of friends we are of God? We are already. We need to think about this. One good way to find an answer is through what we are yet doing. What we are doing, what we are planning, what we are thinking, what we are feeling for others, what we are saying, which kind of style of life we have. This is a good way to get a good answer. Which kind of friends of God we are yet. So I'm praying that this topic will bring us to me to you a new vision of a more complete and intimate relationship with our special friend, Jesus Christ. This is my prayer. And I don't know about you, but my deep desire, my very deep desire is to get this special level, to one day be recognized as his special friend. So I hope this topic helps us to think, evaluate our lives to better improve our relationship with him. And I'm sure it is God's design too. Okay? Okay, see you the next part with our last and third part on the same topic. And I hope you stay here and continue to complete this short series about friend, why are you here with me? See you there for part 3. Bye bye.